Chapter 19. Everybody cringes at the sight of Antonius. Publius, Julius, Flavius, and Rufus waited to hear how Antonius saved himself. He must have escaped only by a miracle. Outdoors, a column of farm carts rattled past. Then the warning call of a watchman resounded, as it did at intervals all through the night. "Dear citizens of Rome," he droned, "keep your fires banked and your lamps lit. Keep your doors and windows bolted so no evil may befall you." Gradually it grew quiet again. Behind the Viminal the sky turned rosy, the stars paled, and the first waking roosters crowed. "Well, how did you manage to escape the lion?" Flavius asked. "Through the grace of the gods and unbelievable luck," Antonius said. "Come now," Publius said, "you aren't just handing us a pack of lies, are you?" Antonius found this comment immensely funny. He doubled over with laughter. "You'll see soon enough that I'm not lying," he said. "Just hold your breath, you skeptic." Baffled, Publius fell silent. What did Antonius mean by that? "Why didn't you simply run out the door, Antonius?" Julius asked. This question, too, evoked a great burst of hilarity from Antonius. "Have you ever sat across from a lion ready to pounce?" he asked. "Thank Jupiter, no," Julius said. "Then try it sometime," Antonius continued. "You wouldn't move a finger. Besides, the louts had barricaded the door from the outside. Even if they hadn't, before I could have turned around, I'd have been eaten alive." "But how long can one sit motionless?" Rufus asked. "I wondered about that too," Antonius said. "All I knew was that the lion was not moving and had me fixed with his eyes. I stared back. I'd once heard that you should look an animal straight in the eye, then they get afraid. But I guess the lion hadn't heard that one. Apparently the whole thing bored him, though, for soon he got up and loped over to the entrance of a tunnel along the left wall, where he crawled inside. Out of curiosity, it seemed. I assumed it was a tunnel the big animals are driven through on their way into the arena. Anyway, he didn't get very far. An iron grill blocked his way. He had forced himself so far into it, however, that only his tail stuck out. I used this moment to make a desperate attempt to save myself. I tore off the net. Here it is, you see. Fled to the cavern the lion had leaped from, and quickly climbed inside. I pulled the sliding iron bars down again, and I was saved." "Fabulous!" Julius, Flavius, and Rufus shouted. "You did a beautiful job, Antonius," even Publius said. Xantippus nodded his agreement. "Bravo, my son," he added. "What happened then?" Julius asked, greedy to hear more. "The lion came back and sat down in front of his cage. Now it was I who was on the inside, and he out. That must have confused him, for he looked at me almost questioningly. 'Ha! So I've outwitted you, you man-eater, eh?' I rejoiced to myself. I was so happy that I stuck out my tongue at him. That seemed to confuse the lion even more, but to me it didn't matter. However, my high spirits didn't last long. Suddenly it occurred to me, by Pluto, now I'm sitting safely in the cage all right, but how am I ever going to get out? Tomorrow they'll find me and make hash out of me." All at once the lion bent his head to one side and gently rubbed against the iron bars, as though asking me to be nice to him. An insane ray of hope flooded through me. Can it be? I asked myself. No, it's impossible. Or is it possible? "What were you thinking?" Flavius asked dumbly. The others surmised some dark thing. Antonius laughed again. What was I thinking? Nothing else. I merely looked at his paws. The claws were snipped off and left completely blunt. "Ramses!" I cried, almost crazy with joy. "Ramses?" the others repeated, and they all began breathing regularly again, as if a stone had been rolled away in front of their hearts. "Yes, that's who it was. It really was. He lay on his back and stretched all 4 paws in the air. He always did that when I used to play with him in the garden of the Numidian prince. 'Ramses,' I yelled, lifting up the bars and leaping down to his side. Overjoyed, I petted him, and he purred with pleasure. I think he was just as glad to see an old friend again as I was. 'Ramses? Is that the lion you wanted to give me as a birthday gift?' Xantippus asked. 'Yes, Master Xanthos. Apparently my father had already sent him to the amphitheatre.' Antonius, you were really blessed, Rufus said with a beaming face. Xanthippus stroked his beard and smiled. Here one can rightly say, he who is struck by lightning and not killed, he is holy. Please continue, Antonius. Ramses climbed up on his hind legs and placed his huge paws on my shoulders, collapsing me like a straw. Poor Ramses, I said, to comfort him. I'm sorry, but I must get away from here as quickly as I can. I hope you understand, but I'll ask my father to come and get you. I picked up the net, ran to the door and jiggled it, but in vain. I'd forgotten it was bolted. Still, it had wide cracks in it. I lifted the sword, pushed it between the cracks, there where the bolt was, and succeeded in pushing it aside. Then I carefully opened the door and looked first to the right and then to the left. Nobody was in sight. I ran down the hall and then suddenly had an idea. If I'm fast, maybe I can free Caius, I thought. Just then a door opened behind me with a crash, and I didn't even turn to see who it was but made for the tunnel that led to the exit door. Unfortunately, I had to pass the gladiator's room again. The door was open, and a beam of light cut across the hallway. Oh, fates, that was a bad obstacle. I was going to steal by on tiptoe, and then it happened. My streak of luck reached its end, for two of the villains were standing in the doorway and saw me immediately. They gaped at me in astonishment. All at once they jumped back in horror and slammed the door with such force that plaster fell from the wall. Aha, I thought maliciously, they take me for my ghost returning from the underworld to take bloody revenge on them. They couldn't believe I'd escaped the lion's den alive. I ran on, breathing easier, dashed around a corner in the tunnel and collided with the two guards who were again making their rounds. To my amazement, both turned tail and skittered up a spiral staircase, 3 steps at a time all the way, and vanished. Eureka! My ghost scared them too, I thought. I can understand that. I would run away too if I met my ghost. Now there was just one obstacle remaining, and that was the sentinel at the door. When I'd come in, though, I'd simply dashed past him, and that seemed to have exasperated him. Then I caught sight of him at the end of the tunnel sitting on a stool near the door. Suddenly I got a bold idea. I'll sneak up to him, throw the net over his head, and shoot out the door. The net will make it hard for him to run after me. I was just 3 steps away from the Cerberus when my helmet bumped against a wooden beam. Poing! I'd forgotten I still had it on, and the fellow shot into the air like a pitchforked elephant. That finishes me, I thought. But miracle upon miracle, he saw me, tore open the door, and shot out into the Via Sacra faster than an arrow of Achilles. He leapt headfirst over a low wall and disappeared. What a coward, I said to myself, and felt triumphant. No doubt he thought I was going to run him through with my sword. I'm a hero. A little while later I was running across the Forum toward Broad Street. I'd just reached the speaker's platform, and a robber who must have been waiting for a victim to come by leaped out at me. Money or life, he hissed like a dragon, spitting fire. He threatened me with a club that was taller and fatter than I am. I raised my sword in fear, trying to protect my face, and abruptly the robber pulled away, threw down his club, and tripping, crawled on all fours in a mad scramble to get under the platform. You miserable coward, I bawled after him. Just come out here if you dare. I'll show you. I was prouder than Mucius Scaevola after he'd slain the robber Cacus. I'm afraid I must remind you, Xanthippus interrupted, that it wasn't Mucius Scaevola, but Heracles who killed the robber Cacus. It could be, Antonius continued. At any rate, I was filled with pride. Still, I got away as fast as my legs would take me, just to make sure, and now here I am, 10 times escaped from death. Antonius beat himself on his breast armor like a victorious gladiator. Praise be Jupiter for smiling on you, Xanthippus said. I'm sorry for the poor lion, Flavius said. Antonius gave a wide grin. What do you mean, the poor lion? He's sitting here, right outside the door. What? His friends shouted. They stared at the hanging, terrified. Xanthippus's eyes bulged. What's the lion doing in front of my door? He croaked. He's waiting for me, Antonius said. He was running behind me like a dog the whole time without me even knowing it. Then the people weren't scared of you, but of the lion, Julius said. You guessed it, Antonius replied, snorting with laughter. Nobody knew Ramses was tame. That's also what the crash was when I was running down the hallway away from the den. Ramses must have pushed open the door with his head in order to run after me. He was just as happy to get away from there as I was. May I let him in, Master Xanthus? Is it true he's harmless? Not only harmless, but also well-mannered. The only thing he can't stand is for somebody to lose his temper and yell at him. Antonius jumped up, ran over to the door hanging, and pushed it aside. Come here, Ramses. You may come in now. At first, an enormous lion's head filled the doorframe. Help! Flavius squeaked, and he disappeared into Xanthipus's clothes closet. Then Ramses appeared in his full majesty. He was a full-grown lion with a splendid dark brown mane. Julius, Rufus, and Publius, frozen in their tracks, stared at him. Xanthipus sat where he was with an iron stillness. Antonius gave Ramses a pat on the head. Please sit down, he said. Hey, Publius, do you still believe I was handing you a pack of lies? Publius looked contrite. Ramses sat down. Sitting, he came up to Antonius's forehead. Thank you, Antonius said to Ramses, and threw himself back down on the easy chair. Ramses went over to him and lay at his feet. Antonius stroked him affectionately behind the ear. Gradually, Julius, Rufus, and Publius relaxed. They cautiously ventured closer to Ramses, and at last stroked him. This is no lion, it's an overgrown lapdog, Publius said, grinning. Ramses saved my life, Antonius said. I'll never give him up again. Can he stay here tonight, Master Xanthus? By Zeus and Apollo, Xanthipus moaned. Are you out of your mind? Then I'll be sitting here not only with a slave around, but with a lion too? His students shouted with laughter. I can't take Ramses with me to Claudia's, Master Xanthos, Antonius pleaded. She would be afraid. She's just a girl, after all. Claudia isn't afraid, Rufus interjected. All right then, Antonius, Xanthipus said with a sigh. Let him stay here for now, but don't forget to pick him up. Before you go to Claudia's, take him into my garden and tie him with the heavy wash line hanging out there. Make sure you attach the rope to the strongest olive tree you can find. Thank you, Master Xanthus, Antonius said happily. Do you have anything for him to eat? He likes horse meat. But I don't, Xanthipus grumbled. Publius, Julius, and Rufus laughed wildly. Quiet, Xanthipus ordered them. I do have a big leg of mutton you can give to Ramses later outdoors. Wonderful, Antonius shouted. Roast mutton. That's his favorite dish. Now Xanthipus laughed too. Perhaps he'd like a jug of wine to go with his meal, he said. Flavius poked his head out of the closet. His friend's gay laughter had charmed him out. But at the sight of the huge lion, he hesitated again. When Rufus sat astride Ramses' back and pulled him playfully by the ears, though, Flavius was sorry for having hidden at all. I was only frightened because he's much bigger than I thought, he muttered. The others politely didn't say anything. They themselves had been scared enough. Friends, Antonius shouted, I'm jumping with joy already to think of what Mucius will say when he sees Ramses. Xanthipus, however, was troubled. By all the gods, where can Mucius be? He said. The boys grew serious at once. I can't understand why he isn't here yet, Antonius said. I hope nothing's happened to him, Rufus added worriedly.